The dust on the Arizona Trail hung thick in the air as Harrison Owens spotted the figure walking alone in the blazing afternoon sun, a sight that would change his life forever. He pulled back on the reins of his supply wagon, the two horses slowing to a gentle halt as he squinted against the harsh glare. The woman was young, that much he could tell even from a distance, and she was carrying what looked like a heavy canvas bag over her shoulder. Her dress was simple, worn from travel, and her dark hair was pulled back beneath a faded bonnet. Out here between his ranch and Bisbee, there was nothing but scrub, brush, and rattlesnakes for miles. Whatever had brought her to this desolate stretch of road, it could not be good. Harrison was 30 years old, a rancher who had built his life from nothing after the war ended 15 years ago. His face was weathered from the sun, his hands calloused from hard work, but his eyes were kind. He had been hauling supplies back from town, the usual monthly trip to stock up on flour, coffee, salt, and whatever else the ranch hands needed. The wagon bed was half full, leaving plenty of room for a passenger if needed. As he drew closer, the woman turned to look at him. She was younger than he had first thought, maybe 22 or 23, with striking features that spoke of determination despite the obvious exhaustion in her eyes. Her face was flushed from the heat, and there were dark circles under her eyes that suggested she had been walking for quite some time. "Madam," Harrison called out, tipping his hat as he brought the wagon to a complete stop beside her. "This is no place for a lady to be walking alone. Can I offer you a ride?" The woman studied him carefully, her hand tightening on the bag she carried. Harrison could see the wariness in her expression, the natural caution of someone who had learned not to trust too easily. "I am heading east toward the Fletcher Ranch," Harrison continued, keeping his voice gentle and non-threatening. "But I can take you wherever you need to go. No woman should be out here alone in this heat." "I appreciate your concern," the woman said, her voice hoarse and tired. "I am trying to get to Bisbee. How far is it?" "About 8 miles still," Harrison replied. "That is a long walk in this sun. Please let me give you a ride." "I promise you, madam, I mean you no harm. I am just a rancher heading back to my place." The woman hesitated for another moment, then seemed to make a decision. She nodded slowly and moved toward the wagon. Harrison quickly climbed down and offered his hand to help her up onto the bench seat. Her hand was small and warm in his, and he could feel how it trembled slightly from exhaustion. Once she was settled, he handed her his canteen. "Drink," he said simply. "You look like you need it." She took the canteen with a grateful nod and drank deeply. Harrison climbed back up beside her and clicked his tongue, urging the horses forward. They moved at an easy pace, and for several minutes neither of them spoke. "My name is Harrison Owens," he finally said, breaking the silence. "I run the Fletcher Ranch about 6 miles from here. We raise cattle and horses mostly." "Anna Summers," the woman replied quietly. "Thank you for stopping. I was starting to think I might not make it to town before dark." "What brings you out this way, Miss Summers, if you do not mind my asking?" Anna was silent for a long moment, and Harrison thought perhaps she would not answer. Then she sighed, a sound that carried a weight of sadness with it. "I was working as a governess for a family about 40 miles north of here. They decided they no longer needed my services, and I was trying to get to Bisbee to find new employment. I had been traveling with a group heading south, but they went a different direction this morning, and I thought I could make it on foot." Harrison frowned. "They left you out here alone." "It was not quite like that," Anna said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "They were heading west, and I needed to go south. I thought it would be a shorter distance than it was." "Well, you are safe now," Harrison said firmly. "I will get you to Bisbee, and you can find a proper place to stay for the night." They continued in companionable silence for a while longer. Harrison found himself stealing glances at Anna when he thought she was not looking. There was something about her that intrigued him beyond her obvious beauty. She carried herself with dignity despite her circumstances, and there was an intelligence in her eyes that spoke of education and refinement. "Have you lived in Arizona long?" Anna asked, turning to look at him. "Since I was 15, Harrison replied. "My father brought us out here in 1870, thinking to make his fortune in silver. He did not, but he did buy a piece of land before he died. I have been building on it ever since, turning it into a working ranch." "That must be difficult work," Anna said. "It is, but it is honest work. I have got 6 ranch hands who help with the cattle and horses. We are not the biggest operation in the area, but we are doing well enough. Better each year, actually." Anna nodded thoughtfully. "And you make this trip to Bisbee often, once a month or so, to get supplies?" "Sometimes more if something urgent comes up." As they talked, Harrison found himself growing more comfortable with Anna's presence. She was easy to talk to, asking intelligent questions and seeming genuinely interested in his answers. She told him a bit more about herself, how she had come from Ohio 3 years ago after her parents died, hoping to find work as a teacher or governess in the growing territories. "It is harder than I expected," Anna admitted. "There are not many families out here who want to pay for a governess, and the teaching positions in the towns are usually taken. I have been moving from family to family, but the work is inconsistent." An idea was forming in Harrison's mind, one that seemed crazy even as he considered it. But there was something about Anna, something that made him want to help her, to keep her from disappearing into Bisbee and out of his life forever. "Miss Summers," he said carefully, "I realize this is forward and you have every right to say no, but I have a large house on my ranch. It belonged to my father, and it is far too big for just me. I also have a woman, Mrs. Garcia, who comes from her farm 3 days a week to help with cooking and cleaning, but she has been saying she needs more help. If you are looking for work, I could offer you a position at the ranch. You would have your own room, regular meals, and a fair wage. You would help Mrs. Garcia with the household duties and perhaps help me with the ranch accounts. I am terrible with bookkeeping." Anna stared at him, her eyes wide with surprise. "Mr. Owens, that is very generous, but you do not even know me. How can you offer me employment just like that?" "I am a good judge of character, Miss Summers," Harrison said quietly. "And my gut tells me you are exactly what you appear to be. An honest woman who has fallen on hard times and needs a break. Besides, I really am terrible with the accounts, and Mrs. Garcia really does need help. The house is too much for her to manage on her own, and I have been meaning to hire someone. You showing up today feels like providence." Anna was quiet for a long moment, considering his offer. Harrison could practically see the wheels turning in her mind, weighing the risks against the benefits. "It would be proper employment," she asked finally, "with clear expectations and boundaries." "Absolutely," Harrison said firmly. "You would be an employee, nothing more. You would have your privacy, your own space, and you would be treated with respect. I give you my word on that. And if it does not work out, if I decide I want to leave, then I will personally drive you to Bisbee or wherever else you want to go with a full recommendation and your wages paid in full." Anna took a deep breath and then slowly nodded. "All right, Mr. Owens, I accept your offer. At least for a trial period, to see if it suits us both." Harrison felt a surge of relief and something else he could not quite name. "Excellent. Then we will head straight to the ranch instead of going into Bisbee. We can make a trip into town in a few days if you need anything." The rest of the journey passed more quickly than Harrison expected. He found himself telling Anna about the ranch, about the land and the cattle and the horses. She listened attentively, asking questions that showed she was truly interested in learning about this new life she was stepping into. When the ranch house finally came into view, Harrison felt a surge of pride. It was a solid structure, built of adobe and wood, with a covered porch that wrapped around 3 sides. It was not fancy, but it was well maintained and comfortable. The barn and outbuildings were in good repair, and the corrals held several dozen horses and a few hundred head of cattle visible in the distance. "It is beautiful," Anna said softly, genuine admiration in her voice. "Thank you," Harrison replied. "I have put a lot of work into it over the years." He pulled the wagon up to the house just as Mrs. Garcia was coming out onto the porch. She was a stout woman in her 50s, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She looked at Anna with curiosity but no judgment. "Mrs. Garcia," Harrison called out, "this is Miss Anna Summers. She is going to be helping you with the house and helping me with the accounts. Can you please show her to the guest room and help her get settled?" Mrs. Garcia smiled warmly. "Of course, Mr. Harrison. Welcome, Miss Summers. Come with me and I will get you situated." "You look exhausted, poor thing." Anna climbed down from the wagon with Harrison's help, and he handed her the canvas bag she had been carrying. "Thank you, Mr. Owens," she said quietly. "I truly appreciate this opportunity. You are welcome, Miss Summers. Get some rest, and we can discuss the details of your position tomorrow." As Anna disappeared into the house with Mrs. Garcia, Harrison began unloading the supplies from the wagon. A couple of his ranch hands came over to help, curious about the newcomer, but tactful enough not to ask too many questions. Harrison found himself working with more energy than usual, his mind on the young woman now in his house. He could not explain it, but something had shifted the moment he saw Anna walking alone on that dusty road. It was as if fate had put her in his path for a reason. He was not a fanciful man, but he could not shake the feeling that his life had just changed in a fundamental way. Inside the house, Mrs. Garcia was showing Anna to a bedroom on the 2nd floor. It was a pleasant room with a large window that looked out over the ranch lands. There was a comfortable bed, a dresser, a washstand with a pitcher and basin, and even a small writing desk. "This is lovely," Anna said, setting her bag down on the bed. "Much nicer than I expected." "Mr. Harrison, he is a good man," Mrs. Garcia said warmly. "He treats everyone fair and kind. You will be happy here, I think. Now you rest a while. I will bring you some water for washing and some supper later. Tomorrow we talk about the work, yes?" "Yes, thank you, Mrs. Garcia." After the older woman left, Anna sat down on the bed and let out a long breath. She could hardly believe the turn her day had taken. This morning, she had been facing an uncertain future, walking alone on a dangerous road with no clear prospects. Now she had a job, a room, and apparently a kind employer. It seemed almost too good to be true. But as she looked around the room and out the window at the beautiful landscape beyond, Anna allowed herself to feel a small spark of hope. Maybe this was exactly where she was supposed to be. Maybe, for the first time in a long time, things were going to work out. Over the next few weeks, Anna settled into her new life at the ranch. Mrs. Garcia proved to be a patient teacher, showing her the routines of the household and explaining how Mr. Owens liked things done. Harrison, for his part, was everything he had promised to be: respectful, fair, and kind. He gave Anna space to learn and adjust, never demanding too much too quickly. Anna's days began early, helping Mrs. Garcia prepare breakfast for Harrison and whatever ranch hands were eating at the main house. After breakfast, she would clean the dishes and tidy the downstairs rooms. In the afternoons, she worked on the ranch accounts, which truly were in need of serious organization. Harrison had been honest about his lack of bookkeeping skills, and Anna found a certain satisfaction in bringing order to the chaos of receipts, invoices, and ledgers. In the evenings, after supper, she would often sit on the porch with Harrison and Mrs. Garcia, enjoying the cooler air and watching the sun set over the ranch. These were her favorite times when the work was done, and she could simply relax and enjoy the peaceful surroundings. As the weeks turned into months, Anna began to notice changes in herself. She was less guarded, less constantly worried about her future. She smiled more easily and laughed more often. She felt safe here in a way she had not felt safe in years. She also began to notice Harrison in ways that had nothing to do with him being her employer. She noticed the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle way he spoke to the horses, the respect with which he treated everyone on the ranch. She noticed the strength in his arms when he lifted heavy supplies, the way his voice deepened when he was tired, the streak of silver just beginning to show in his dark hair. Harrison, for his part, was equally aware of Anna. He found himself looking forward to their evening conversations on the porch, to the way her face lit up when she talked about something that interested her. He admired her intelligence, her work ethic, and the grace with which she handled every task. He loved the sound of her laughter and the way she hummed softly to herself when she thought no one was listening. But both of them were careful, maintaining the proper boundaries of employer and employee. Neither wanted to jeopardize the comfortable arrangement they had found. It was a cool evening in late October when things began to shift. Harrison and Anna were alone on the porch, Mrs. Garcia having gone home for the day. They had fallen into a comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts as they watched the stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. "Anna," Harrison said suddenly, then stopped, seeming uncertain how to continue. Anna turned to look at him, surprised. He rarely used her first name. "Yes, I wanted to thank you," he said, meeting her eyes, "for everything you have done here. The house has never been so well organized, and the accounts actually make sense now. But more than that, you have brought something to this place that was missing. A warmth, I suppose, a sense of home." Anna felt her cheeks flush. "That is very kind of you to say, Harrison." She used his first name deliberately, testing the waters. He smiled at the sound of it. "I know we have kept things very professional between us, as is proper, but I want you to know that I consider you more than just an employee. You are a friend, Anna, a true friend." "I feel the same way," Anna said softly. "I cannot imagine being anywhere else now. This ranch, this life, it feels like where I am supposed to be." They looked at each other for a long moment, something unspoken passing between them. Then Harrison cleared his throat and stood up. "I should check on the horses before bed," he said. "Good night, Anna." "Good night, Harrison." As he walked away, Anna sat alone on the porch, her heart beating faster than usual. She knew in that moment that her feelings for Harrison had grown beyond friendship. She was falling in love with him, and the realization both thrilled and terrified her. The next few weeks were difficult for both of them. The awareness of their changing feelings created a new tension in the house, though neither of them spoke of it directly. They were both adults, both aware of the complications that a romantic relationship could bring, especially given their employer-employee dynamic. It was Mrs. Garcia who finally intervened. She pulled Anna aside one afternoon in the kitchen and fixed her with a knowing look. "You love him," she said simply. It was not a question. Anna's eyes widened. "Mrs. Garcia, I do not know what you mean. Please, child, I have eyes. And I see how he looks at you too. You are both being very foolish, tiptoeing around each other like this." "But he is my employer," Anna protested weakly. "It would not be proper." "Proper," Mrs. Garcia scoffed. "Out here, proper matters less than happiness. That man has been alone too long, and you have been lonely too long. Life is short, Miss Anna. Do not waste it worrying about what is proper." That evening, Harrison asked Anna to walk with him after supper. They strolled through the ranch, past the corrals and out toward the grazing lands. The moon was bright, illuminating their path. "Anna," Harrison began, then stopped. He took a deep breath and started again. "I need to be honest with you about something. These past months having you here have been the happiest I have known in years. At first, I thought it was simply because the house was running smoother, because I had help with the work. But it is more than that. Much more." Anna's heart began to race, but she stayed quiet, letting him speak. "I find myself thinking about you constantly," Harrison continued. "When I am out working with the cattle, I am wondering what you are doing. When I am in town, I am thinking about what might make you smile. You are the last thing I think about before I sleep, and the first thing on my mind when I wake." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I know this complicates things. I know I am your employer, and that creates a power dynamic that makes this difficult. But I cannot keep pretending that what I feel for you is simple friendship. I am in love with you, Anna, completely and utterly in love with you." Anna felt tears spring to her eyes. "Oh, Harrison, I love you too. I have been trying so hard not to, trying to keep things proper, but I cannot help it. I love you." Harrison pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Then we will find a way to make this work. We will do things right, courting properly despite the fact that we live under the same roof. And when enough time has passed, if you will have me, I want to marry you, Anna. I want to spend the rest of my life with you." "Yes," Anna whispered against his chest. "Yes, to all of it." They stood there under the moonlight for a long time, simply holding each other. When they finally pulled apart, Harrison gently cupped Anna's face in his hands and kissed her softly. It was a gentle kiss, full of promise and hope for the future. The next months were a time of joy for both of them. They courted openly, with Mrs. Garcia as a frequent chaperone to maintain propriety. Harrison took Anna into Bisbee for dinners, to social events, and to meet other ranchers and townspeople. Anna moved into the smaller guest room, and Harrison made sure that their sleeping arrangements were always proper and above reproach. In December, Harrison proposed formally, presenting Anna with a beautiful ring that had belonged to his mother. They were married in Bisbee's church on a crisp January day in 1886, surrounded by the ranch hands, Mrs. Garcia, and various friends they had made in the community. Their wedding night was spent at a small hotel in Bisbee, and it was everything both of them had hoped it would be. They came together with tenderness and passion, their love for each other deepening with every touch and kiss. When they returned to the ranch the next day, it was as husband and wife. Anna moved into Harrison's bedroom, and together they began building their life as a married couple. The first year of their marriage was not without challenges. Running a ranch was hard work, and there were times when money was tight or the weather did not cooperate. But through it all, Anna and Harrison supported each other. She proved to be an invaluable partner, not just in managing the household but in helping make decisions about the ranch itself. Her mind for numbers and organization helped them navigate difficult financial periods, and her calm presence steadied Harrison when he was stressed. In the summer of 1886, Anna discovered she was pregnant. Harrison was overjoyed at the news, already imagining the child they would raise together. He became even more protective of Anna, worrying constantly about her health and comfort. "I am fine, Harrison," Anna would laugh, swatting his hands away when he tried to prevent her from doing anything remotely strenuous. "Women have been having babies since the beginning of time. I am not made of glass." But Harrison could not help himself. The thought of anything happening to Anna terrified him. She had become his entire world, and the idea of her bringing their child into it filled him with an overwhelming love he had not known he was capable of feeling. Their son was born in March of 1887, a healthy baby boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's bright eyes. They named him Henry, after Harrison's father. Harrison wept when he held his son for the first time, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility and love. Anna proved to be a natural mother, balancing the demands of caring for an infant with continuing to help run the ranch. Mrs. Garcia was delighted with the baby, doting on little Henry and helping Anna whenever needed. As Henry grew from infant to toddler, the ranch continued to prosper. Word of Harrison's fair dealing and quality livestock spread, and they began to attract buyers from further afield. The additional income allowed Harrison to expand their land holdings and increase their herd size. In 1889, Anna gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Hope. She was a beautiful baby with golden curls and a sunny disposition. Henry, now 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister and insisted on helping with everything. The house that had once seemed too large for Harrison alone now rang with the sounds of children laughing, of family dinners around the large dining table, of bedtime stories and morning chaos. Anna had transformed it from a simple dwelling into a true home, filled with love and warmth. One evening when Henry was 5 and Hope was 3, Harrison and Anna sat together on the porch as they had so many times before. The children were asleep, the ranch was quiet, and the stars were brilliant overhead. "You ever think about that day?" Harrison asked quietly. "When I saw you walking on that road." Anna leaned against his shoulder, smiling. "All the time. I was so tired and scared that day, wondering what was going to become of me. And then you appeared like an answer to a prayer I had not even finished praying." "I almost did not stop," Harrison admitted. "I had a moment where I thought about just driving past, not wanting to get involved. But something made me pull those reins back. Something told me I needed to stop." "I am glad you did," Anna said softly. "I am glad you offered me that ride and then so much more. You gave me a home, Harrison, a family, a life I never dreamed I could have." "You gave me the same," Harrison replied, kissing the top of her head. "I was just existing before you came along. Going through the motions of life but not really living. You taught me what it means to truly be alive, to love and be loved." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in thoughts of how far they had come. "Mama, Papa," Henry's voice called from inside. "Hope is crying." Anna and Harrison exchanged amused looks and stood up. "Parenthood never stops," Anna laughed. "Would you want it any other way?" Harrison asked. "Not for anything in the world," Anna replied, taking his hand as they went inside to tend to their children. The years continued to pass, bringing both joys and sorrows. Mrs. Garcia eventually retired, though she remained a frequent visitor and beloved honorary grandmother to Henry and Hope. Harrison's ranch became one of the most respected in the region, known for quality livestock and honest dealing. In 1892, Anna gave birth to their third child, another son they named James. The pregnancy had been more difficult than her previous two, and for a while, Harrison had been genuinely frightened that he might lose her. But Anna was strong and she pulled through, presenting him with another healthy baby boy. 3 children, Harrison marveled, holding James while Anna rested after the birth. "We have 3 beautiful children, Anna. How did I get so lucky?" "We got lucky," Anna corrected gently. "Both of us. We found each other when we each needed someone most." Henry and Hope were thrilled with their new baby brother. Henry, now 5, took his role as oldest sibling seriously, always wanting to help. Hope, at 3, was curious about everything the baby did, constantly asking questions. As the children grew, Anna homeschooled them, using her education to ensure they had every advantage. She taught them to read and write, to do mathematics, to understand history and geography. Harrison taught them about ranching, about caring for animals, about the value of hard work and integrity. The family took trips to Bisbee regularly, attending church services and social events. Anna became known in the community as an intelligent, kind woman who could discuss literature and politics as easily as she could recipes and child rearing. Harrison was respected as a successful rancher who treated his workers fairly and contributed to the community. But it was not all easy. In 1894, a severe drought hit the region, and many ranchers struggled. Harrison and Anna worked tirelessly to keep their cattle alive, hauling water from distant sources and carefully managing their resources. There were nights when Harrison would come in exhausted and discouraged, wondering if they would lose everything they had built. But Anna was his rock during those difficult times. She encouraged him, helped him strategize, and reminded him that they had faced challenges before and overcome them together. Her faith in him never wavered, and that faith gave him the strength to keep going. The drought finally broke in the fall of 1895, and the ranch survived. They had lost some cattle, but the core herd remained strong. More importantly, they had proven to themselves that their partnership could weather any storm. In 1896, Anna discovered she was pregnant again, much to their surprise. Henry was now 9, Hope was 7, and James was 4. The thought of starting over with an infant was daunting, but both Anna and Harrison were delighted. This time they welcomed a second daughter, whom they named Grace. She was a tiny, delicate baby, quite different from her robust siblings. The older children adored her immediately, all wanting to help care for their baby sister. As the new century approached, the Owens family was thriving. The ranch had grown significantly, and they now employed a dozen ranch hands. Harrison had built a separate bunkhouse for the workers and expanded the barn twice to accommodate their growing horse operation. Henry, showing a natural aptitude for ranching, worked alongside his father whenever he was not studying with his mother. Hope had inherited Anna's love of learning and could often be found with her nose in a book. James was the adventurous one, always getting into mischief, always exploring. And little Grace was growing into a sweet, gentle child who loved animals and flowers. One evening in 1899, after all the children were in bed, Anna and Harrison walked out to look at the ranch by moonlight. They were both in their 40s now, their hair touched with gray, their faces lined with years of sun and laughter. 15 years, Anna said softly. 15 years since you picked me up on that road. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Other times it feels like another lifetime. The best 15 years of my life, Harrison said, putting his arm around her waist. Every day with you has been a gift, Anna. Even the hard days, Anna teased gently. Especially the hard days, Harrison replied seriously. Because those are the days that showed me what we are really made of. Together, we can handle anything. Anna leaned her head against his shoulder. I used to dream about what my life would be like when I was young. I imagined teaching in a proper school somewhere, maybe finding a husband who was kind. But this life, this reality we have built together, is so much better than any dream I could have imagined. I never dreamed much at all, Harrison admitted. I was too busy working, too focused on survival and building the ranch. But you taught me to dream, Anna. You showed me that life could be about more than just work and duty. You taught me about love and family and joy. They stood there together, looking out over the land they had built their life on. The house behind them glowed with warm lamplight. In the corrals, the horses stirred softly. In the distance, cattle lowed occasionally. Everything was peaceful, everything was right. "What do you think the new century will bring?" Anna asked. "I do not know," Harrison said. "But whatever it brings, we will face it together, you and me and our children. We have built something strong here, Anna, something that will last." And he was right. As the 20th century dawned, the Owens family continued to thrive. Henry grew into a fine young man who took over more and more of the ranch operations, eventually becoming his father's full partner. Hope went away to study at a teaching college, returning to start the first proper school in their region. James explored various interests before finding his calling as a veterinarian, serving the ranching community his father had been part of for so long. And Grace, the youngest, brought music into their lives, learning to play the piano that Harrison surprised Anna with on their 20th wedding anniversary. Anna and Harrison watched with pride as their children grew and found their own paths. They became grandparents when Henry married and had children of his own. Then Hope married and added more grandchildren to the family. The house that had once seemed so empty was now constantly filled with the sounds of family, of multiple generations gathered around the dining table that Harrison had built with his own hands. As they grew older, Anna and Harrison found themselves with more time to simply enjoy each other's company. They took walks together every evening, holding hands like young lovers. They sat on the porch and watched sunsets, reminiscing about their life together. They traveled a few times, taking a train to see parts of the country they had never visited. But they always came back to the ranch, to the land that had been the foundation of their life together. It was where they belonged, where their story had truly begun. In 1910, on a warm spring evening, Harrison and Anna celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary. All their children and grandchildren gathered for a huge celebration. There was food and music and laughter. Henry gave a speech about his parents' love being the foundation that had allowed all of them to build successful lives. Hope read a poem she had written about her mother's strength and grace. James presented them with a beautiful leather-bound photo album he had carefully assembled, filled with pictures documenting their life together. And Grace played the piano, her fingers dancing over the keys in a melody she had composed just for them. Anna cried happy tears as she looked around at the family they had created. "This," she said to Harrison, "this is everything I could have ever hoped for." "We did well," Harrison agreed, his own eyes suspiciously bright. "We did very well indeed." As the evening wound down and the younger grandchildren were carried off to bed, Harrison and Anna found themselves alone on the porch once more. The stars were out, brilliant and infinite, just as they had been on so many nights throughout their marriage. "Do you remember what you said to me that first day?" Anna asked. "When you stopped your wagon and offered me a ride," Harrison thought for a moment, then smiled. "I said you should not be walking alone in this heat, that no woman should be out there alone." "You offered me a ride," Anna said softly, "just a ride to Bisbee, but what you really offered me was a whole life, a family, a home, everything." "And you accepted," Harrison said, taking her hand. "You took a chance on a stranger, on an offer that must have seemed too good to be true." "You were brave, Anna. You have always been brave." "Not brave," Anna disagreed. "Just desperate enough and hopeful enough to take a chance. And look what came of it. Look at all of this." She gestured to the ranch, to the house where their children and grandchildren slept, to the life they had built together. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the night, feeling the gentle breeze that carried the scent of sage and wildflowers. After all these years, they could still communicate without words, could still understand each other with just a look or a touch. "I would do it all again," Harrison said suddenly. "Every hard day, every challenge, every worry, I would do it all exactly the same if it meant ending up here with you." "So would I," Anna replied. "Without hesitation, without regret, you gave me everything, Harrison. A name, a home, a family, but most importantly, you gave me love. Real, true, lasting love. We gave that to each other," Harrison corrected gently. "That is what made this work, Anna. It was never just me giving to you or you giving to me. We built this together, as equal partners, as best friends, as lovers. That is why it has lasted so long and so well." As the night grew later and cooler, they finally went inside, climbing the stairs to their bedroom hand in hand. They had shared this room for 25 years now, and it was filled with the comfortable familiarity of long partnership. Anna's books were on the nightstand on her side. Harrison's pocket watch sat on the dresser where he placed it every night. The quilt on their bed had been sewn by Anna's own hands, a patchwork of fabrics that told the story of their family's growth. They prepared for bed with the easy rhythm of long practice, neither needing to speak to know what the other needed. When they finally lay down, Harrison pulled Anna close, and she rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "Thank you," Harrison whispered into the darkness. "For what?" Anna asked. "For walking down that road on that particular day. For being there when I came along. For saying yes to my crazy offer of employment. For falling in love with me. For saying yes to my proposal. For giving me children and grandchildren. For building this life with me. For everything, Anna. Thank you for everything." Anna tilted her head up and kissed him softly. "Thank you for stopping your wagon. Thank you for seeing me not as a burden or a problem, but as a person worth helping. Thank you for offering me not just a ride, but a permanent place in your life. Thank you for loving me, for being faithful to me, for being the best husband and father I could have imagined. Thank you for being you, Harrison." They kissed again, a kiss that held 25 years of love and commitment, and then settled into each other's arms to sleep. Outside, the ranch was quiet, peaceful, prosperous. Inside, the house was filled with family. And in this bedroom, two people who had found each other against all odds rested secure in the knowledge that they had built something lasting and real. The years continued to pass, bringing more grandchildren, and eventually even great-grandchildren. Harrison retired from active ranch management in his 60s, turning the operation over to Henry while remaining available for advice and wisdom. Anna continued teaching the youngest grandchildren when they came to visit, instilling in them her love of learning and her belief in the power of education. They grew old together, their bodies slowing but their minds and hearts remaining sharp. They watched as the world changed around them, as automobiles began to replace horses, as electricity came to even remote ranches, as airplanes flew overhead. But through all the changes, their love remained constant. In 1920, they celebrated their 35th wedding anniversary with another large family gathering. Harrison was 65 now, his hair completely silver, his face deeply lined but still handsome. Anna was 57, her own hair more gray than brown, but her eyes still bright with intelligence and humor. 35 years, Henry said in his toast. 35 years of marriage, of partnership, of love. You two have shown all of us what commitment really means. You have weathered every storm together and come out stronger. You have raised us to value family, integrity, and hard work. Everything we are, we owe to you. As the celebration wound down that evening, Anna and Harrison walked out to look at the ranch one more time. They moved more slowly now, Harrison using a cane, Anna holding his arm for support as much as affection. But they still made this walk every evening they could, still found peace in observing what they had built. "No regrets?" Harrison asked, as he had asked so many times over the years. "Not a single one," Anna replied, as she always did. This life, this love, this family we have created is beyond anything I could have hoped for when I was that young woman walking alone on a dusty road. You were never alone, Harrison said. Even before we met, you were never truly alone. We were always meant to find each other, Anna. I believe that with my whole heart. So do I, Anna agreed. It was fate that brought us together, but it was choice that kept us together. We chose each other every single day in big ways and small. That is what made our love last. They stood together watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Behind them, their house was full of family and love. Before them, the ranch stretched out, prosperous and peaceful. And beside them, each had the person who had made all of it possible. Harrison and Anna lived well into their later years, both remaining mentally sharp and emotionally connected even as their bodies aged. They died within months of each other in 1925, Harrison going first at the age of 70, and Anna following at 62. They were buried side by side on a gentle hill on the ranch, overlooking the land they had built their life on. At their funerals, their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren spoke of the love that had been the foundation of their family. They told the story of how Harrison had found Anna walking alone on a hot Arizona day and offered her a ride. They talked about how that simple act of kindness had blossomed into a love story that spanned 4 decades and touched countless lives. Henry, now running the ranch that his father had built, made sure that his parents' graves were always well tended. He had a beautiful stone marker placed there with an inscription that read, "Harrison Owens and Anna Summers Owens." 2 hearts that found each other on a dusty road and built a life of love, family, and lasting legacy. Together always. The ranch continued to thrive under Henry's management, and then under his children's management after him. The Owens family remained a respected name in the region for generations, always remembered as people of integrity, hard work, and strong family values. The house that Harrison had once thought too large for one man continued to be filled with family gatherings and celebrations, remaining the heart of the family well into the 21st century. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the sun was setting and the air was cool, family members would walk out to that gentle hill and stand by those graves. They would think about the love story that had started their family, about the young woman walking alone and the man who stopped to help her. They would think about how a single act of kindness had rippled forward through time, creating a legacy of love that continued to grow and flourish. The story of Harrison and Anna became a family legend, passed down from generation to generation. Great-grandchildren who had never met them still knew their story, still understood that everything their family had came from the love those 2 people had shared. It was a love built on mutual respect, on partnership, on choosing each other day after day. It was a love that had weathered droughts and financial hardships, had celebrated births and mourned losses, had grown deeper and richer with every passing year. It was a love that had created not just a family but a legacy, not just a household but a true home. When the last of their great-grandchildren passed away at the end of the 20th century, the stories were carried forward by great-great-grandchildren and beyond. The ranch itself eventually passed out of family hands, sold to new owners who maintained it with respect for its history. But the house still stood, and on clear evenings, some claimed they could feel the presence of the love that had filled it for so many years. The graves on the hill remained, tended now by a trust the family had established. Visitors to the area would sometimes stop there, reading the inscription and wondering about the people buried beneath. Local historians documented the story, making sure it was preserved for future generations. But the true legacy of Harrison and Anna was not in the physical monuments or historical records. It was in the values they had instilled in their descendants, values that continued to guide the family generations later. It was in the importance they had placed on family, on commitment, on keeping one's word. It was in the example they had set of what true partnership looked like, of how two people could build something lasting and meaningful together. Their love story had started with a simple act of compassion, a man stopping his wagon to help a woman in need. But it had grown into something far greater, a testament to the power of choosing love every single day, of building a life together brick by brick and moment by moment. In the end, Harrison and Anna's story was not just about falling in love. It was about staying in love through all the challenges life threw at them. It was about being partners in the fullest sense of the word, supporting each other, encouraging each other, and never giving up on each other. It was about creating a family and raising children who understood the value of integrity and hard work. It was about building a home that was filled with warmth and laughter and love. It was about one man who offered a ride and one woman who accepted it. And from that single moment of connection, a whole beautiful life unfolded, touching countless others and creating a legacy that would last for generations to come. The dusty Arizona road where they had first met was eventually paved over, became part of a modern highway. The landscape changed, the territory became a state, the Wild West became history. But the love story of Harrison Owens and Anna Summers remained, a reminder that sometimes the most important moments in life come when we least expect them, when we choose to stop and help someone in need, when we take a chance on hope. And somewhere in the warm Arizona evening, if you listen carefully, you might still hear the echo of laughter from a porch, the sound of children playing, the gentle murmur of two people who found each other and built a life of love that would never truly end.